Hello, my name is Kasha Stachin. As Education Senior Associate for IUG Headquarters, I would like to welcome you to today's webinar, Oracle BI 11.1.1.5 Released, OBI EE 11G Changes and New Features. IUG is pleased to continue our webinar programming with this informative and educational event. Please feel free to submit your questions throughout the event via the question and answer box in your webinar toolbar, and our speakers will answer your questions at the very end. At this time, I'd like to invite you to take a look at the following slides and upcoming events that are happening through IUG. Performance Engineering Tour with Tom Kite, Andrew Holdsworth, and Graham Wood take the stage for an energizing jam sessions punctuated with reviling presentations and memorable riffs about designing hardware architectures, deploying Oracle databases, developing applications to deliver the fastest possible performance. And all the information is also located on our following slide, including the dates and the cities. So if you want to go ahead and take a look at that. For new venues, dates and announced up and coming, Rock On Performance Engineering Touring Dates. So if you're available for any of those, we would love for you to come out and join. And if you need any further information, please take a look at www.ioug.org. At this time, I'd like to welcome our speakers today, Bob Ertl, Marty Gubar, Alan Lee, and Dan Vlamis. Dan Vlamis founded Vlamis Software Solutions in 1992. Under Dan's leadership, Vlamis Software Solutions has become one of the most highly respected and recognized Oracle BI implementation consulting firms in America. Vlamis teams have led more than 200 Oracle BI and Oracle OLAP implementations, and they are regularly called on to handle the thorniest and most technically challenging engagements. Vlamis Software Solutions is an Oracle Gold Partner, and Dan is recognized by Oracle as an Oracle Ace. He has been a beta tester of numerous Oracle product releases, including OBI EE 11G, and maintains long-standing personal relationships with Oracle product managers in the business intelligence, database, OLAP, data mining, OBI EE, and S-base areas. Before founding Vlamis Software Solutions, Dan worked as IRI, where he led the back-end team that wrote Oracle Sales Analyzer, later to become Oracle OLAP. Dan is a recognized leader in the Oracle community. Dan has been a frequent speaker at major Oracle conferences such as Oracle Open World, Collaborate, and ODTUG for over a decade. As an Oracle Business Intelligence, Warehousing, and Analytics BIWA board member, he chaired the BIWA Summit in 2008 and was the BI EPM DW track chair for the Collaborate 10 and Collaborate 11 conferences. Dan is a co-author of the Oracle Pressbook, Oracle S-Base, and Oracle OLAP, the guide to Oracle's multi-dimensional solution, and he is often featured in Oracle Magazine. Dan is a member of the Oracle Data Warehousing Global Leaders Program, and he consults with Oracle Product Management regularly. Dan holds a BS in Computer Science from Brown University. At this time, I would like to hand it over to Dan. Thank you so much, Dan.
Thanks, Kasha. Had I thought about the length of the bio that was meant to be shared, I would have trimmed that down for the audio portion, but thank you very much for going through that. Before we actually begin, I just want to let you all know what this is part of and the series that we have. The BIWA SIG is part of IOUG, the Independent Oracle User Group, and we're pleased to bring these types of technical presentations on a periodic basis, often in this time slot. And BIWA SIG, just in case you aren't aware of it, is a big organization of over 2,000 people interested in Oracle database, business intelligence, data warehousing, and analytics. And we try to share all those best practices and such with our members. We have strong presence at the Collaborate conference each year. We'd like to encourage you all to submit a abstract for a BIWA TechCast and be able to share your knowledge with other people in the BIWA community and the IOUG community. So you can submit that at www.oraclebiwa.org. What we're going to talk about today is the new release of Oracle BI 11.1.1.5 and what's changed and what some of those new features are. What we've just gone through is kind of that introductory comment in starting up the presentation. And I do want to make sure I thank Alan Lee, Bob Ertl, and Marty Gubar, all of the Oracle product management staff, are joining us today to help out with some of the questions that may come up. There's some important releases we'll get into, and their willingness to be on here with us to answer those questions. Very much appreciated. Indeed, Alan, Bob, Marty, as I'm talking through stuff, if there's something you'd like to add on this, I'd welcome you to just pipe up and share with the audience. Add a little, if you will, color commentary, or for that matter, if I'm going astray, take over. That'd be great, and make sure we get the information out here. So one of the things you'll see as we go through the presentation is I've gone ahead and used some slides that Oracle's prepared for me, prepared in general, and borrowed liberally from their slides on what's new. But then I've also gone ahead and kind of put my own spin on this from what we've noticed as we've looked through this release over the past couple of weeks. So the things that I see are part of this is the first patch release for OBIE 11G, a very important release. The BI applications we'll talk about, this release, support for the Oracle mobile platform, and one of the things near and dear to my heart is the full support for OLAP Sources, including Netspace and Oracle OLAP. There are other platforms supported as well, and we've found that the memory requirements are much better for this release. An expanded BI sample application, I plan to show parts of that in this presentation, and support for a 64-bit BI admin tool and some new visualizations, as well as the metadata service. So we'll give a live demo of that, and then we'll be joined by Marty, Bob, and Alan for Q&A. So with that, the background was already given, so I'll just skip through this and go through in general what we're talking about on this. So some of the themes, this slide shows kind of the themes from my standpoint, and then it's interesting to see also some of the themes from Oracle's standpoint. One of the major ones is really this BI mobile. What that does is opens up the marketplace for additional customers to be able to purchase the OBIEE product, and makes it more accessible to many different customers, and very attractive. Also, the data sources, the platform support, you'll see there's a larger platform, and the ease of use and some additional innovation on this. But it's important to note on this as I go through kind of this in a little more detail. The biggest thing for me I see is the fact that this is the first patch release. 11G was a huge release of OBIEE, and inevitably that introduced some instability in the product. Anytime you replace that much of a product, everybody knows in the Oracle community, and not just Oracle, in software development, that there's going to be things that you look at and say, oh, that should have been done like this. So everybody kind of waits for that first patch release. And I think the major news that I see from today is, hey, it's safe to come in the water now. Indeed, we were some of the ones championing it safe earlier, but now some of the naysayers will be more likely to enter the water. Now, you won't see Oracle drumming that, touting that as much, just because they don't want to say something about the previous release. But for us, that's huge. And there's lots of bug fixes in 11.1.1.5. We've already witnessed some of those. We experienced some of those places where, it should work like this in some of the areas, including some of the map areas that we've already seen that, hey, they did catch that. Fantastic. So, you know, some of those we even reported in the beta program, but of course, as you get close to the first release, you don't have time to fix everything as you get down to the wire. And now that stuff appears to have been addressed. So if you've been waiting for patch set 1, now's the time. One of the other big news items with this is the release of Oracle BI application 7963. And this release was kind of waiting for everything to come together. And now OBIEE 11.1.1.5 serves as the platform for BI applications 7963. So this opens up this platform to all of the BI applications communities. And they're ready, Oracle's ready to host all of the functionality of BI applications in the OBIEE 11.1.1.5 environment. And that's huge for being able to open this up to a lot of communities. Indeed, a colleague, Sham Nath, that I serve on the BWA board with, gave a presentation just last week on exactly this topic, and you can get more information on that, including his slides, from oraclebwasig.blogspot.com, and take a look at that. And he went through presentation. As Kasha mentioned at the start of the webcast, a recording of that will be available shortly for that one and this webcast as well. One of the other major developments is the introduction of Oracle BI Mobile 11.115. As some may know, there was an iPhone application that was out there for 10G, and that application did not work with 11G when it first shipped. But now there's a whole new application built for the Apple iPhone and the iPad development environment, just called Oracle BI, that you can actually is available now through the Apple Store. And that builds on the OBIE foundation. It has an embedded dashboard approach, and it is much more functional than the previous application, which is actually pretty good. But now it does even more, and of course with more screen real estate with the iPad, it looks very, very nice. It includes the primitives that you would expect, the gestural interactions, to be able to do that, and it's going to be available, or is available from the iTunes App Store, and does exactly what you would think it would do. Indeed, running on the iPad is very nice. You have what you would expect in terms of the keyboard, being able to interact with the screen, multi-touch interface, and uses the iOS features. Some of the stuff that I've spoken to Oracle folks about is they see this as a very important platform for them, and are really taking more the approach of let's make BI more pervasive throughout the organization through a connected type of interface, because those connections are becoming more and more popular, and focus on this mobile platform as a way to distribute BI to the masses. Indeed, let me show a little bit of what that looks like with a movie that was captured that shows what this can kind of look like for this. And you really lose a lot when you don't have this in front of you, but let me just show what the interaction looks like. It's integrated in with the operating system of the iPad, so that you have alerts, and it uses the primitives you expect. You can look at folders, a catalog, you have your various dashboards, and you can scroll through that and use your finger. You can't see the finger on this, but scroll through those just like you would expect. The settings are in the normal settings type area. You control what type of platform you're attaching to. And then if you just look at an example of a dashboard, a thematic example, a thematic map example, you click on the various checkboxes to turn on various layers. The zooming would be done by the pinching type motion that's native to the iPad implementation. And then you can turn on various layers. All that type of stuff works exactly the way you would think. So that's really what I especially wanted to show on this. One last thing is, when you want to go in and type and use BI search to look at something, when you click on the search bar, then obviously a keyboard comes up, and then you can type into that. So it looks very nice for what you're trying to look at. I just wanted to go into that briefly to show what that looks like. Now, other areas that was big for OBIEE 11G release was, and one thing we were waiting very much for, was the ability to look at OLAP sources and view OLAP data in OBIEE. Indeed, if you look at what you can do with the 10G release of OBIEE, it actually is a very fine dashboard product and presenting data. But if you're trying to do analysis that is OLAP analysis, in many ways it didn't have all of the things that you really need. One of those that became very important in 11G was the hierarchical columns, the ability to expand and collapse a hierarchy. I'll show that a little later, and be able to look at that. That enabled OLAP features in the front end of OBIEE, and it was done in a source agnostic fashion. So in 11.113, the prior release, you could look at all of your OLAP sources and all of your relational sources and present it with an OLAP front end. Now, however, what we find is you really need OLAP sources for performance. If you're going to try and do OLAP style analysis, I would venture to say if your data sets are of any reasonable size, you need a back end that has OLAP type capabilities. The primary ones for that are Oracle Essbase and Oracle OLAP for that in the Oracle database. So that already worked in release 11.113, but it required a little bit of work to do some of the plumbing with this. Now you can just point to, in the case of an Oracle OLAP cube or an Essbase cube, you can point to those cubes with OBIEE. It understands the metadata. The metadata comes across automatically, and the integration is built in. Also, make sure I mention Essbase is fully supported as a source as well for that. So what does that look like? In Oracle OLAP, there's a, in the drop-down, when you import metadata, there's a new choice there for Oracle OLAP. Indeed, you'll see in that screenshot, SAP BW native as well is new. And you just run the BI admin tool on this to be able to look at that. And there's more information in the slide on where to go. So let me go ahead and show what that looks like and run through that a little bit. I've got the BI admin tool 11.115 open here. And if I want to then go in and see, you'll see I already have sample OLAP analytic workspace, and this is the BI sample that I'm looking at. If I choose import metadata and come in and import this, I can specify now with that connection type, drop this down and look at Oracle OLAP for that. And then I specify a connection, a data source name, something like this. And then you use host port SID to be able to get at this. And I'm going to go after this machine, and I enter a username and enter a password. And then I can specify, do I want that to go into a new target database or an existing one? So I can put in here something like BIWA on here, and then just click on Next. Now, I'm not going to do that because I don't want to mess up what I have already in here. But that's the process you go through in order to just import your metadata for looking at Oracle OLAP. It then discovers the cubes that you have in there, and you can specify which cubes you want. It understands those. And in the end, let me show you what that looks like. When you import it, it comes in and already knows all of the dimensions that you have, in this case, these 6 dimensions and these 3 cubes that are already in there. And those will automatically be mapped. It will know at that point, since this has been brought in, that for this product dimension, it knows that there's one hierarchy called the brand hierarchy, consisting of all products to brand, to line of business, to type, and so forth. These attributes automatically are mapped and come in. And all of in the case of this cube, all of these measures are here. Indeed, the base measures for this are the units measure, and for instance, the gross revenue, fixed cost on this. Those measures are what are actually stored in the cube in the Oracle database. And then these additional calculations, such as gross margin percent, all these other 3-month moving averages, the ranking, the share, year-to-date, all of those are calculated on the fly by the Oracle OLAP option within the Oracle database. And those are exposed to OBIEE as measures that have already been calculated. When I run my import wizard, it can bring this in and automatically knows what those measures are, what the dimensionality of multiple cubes are. And then if I bring over from the physical layer to the logical layer, people that have used OBIEE are probably familiar with this. This brings in all of the dimensions with all of the levels. And so if I expand on this, it knows what the hierarchies are, what the attributes are, how they're sorted, the sort order, all that type of stuff just automatically comes over, and then drag it obviously from the the logical to the presentation area, and everything's ready to show in the presentation. And there's not this plumbing of having to specify joins and such. in order to do that. One side benefit of this, by the way, that I'll show real quick, is that you can actually come in here and look at the business model diagram, and you have a very nice way of looking at, in effect, the star schema of what the cube results in. And that's what I'm looking at here with this new example. I'll come back to this in a bit, but I wanted to show what that looks like in terms of looking at this with bringing in OLAP data. So with that, let me pop back out to the presentation and go through a little more on this. This is just some screenshots showing how this works. You can work with Oracle BI, OLAP, Exadata all together, and BI uses the generates OLAP aware SQL and ships the functions down to the database where it knows how to do that type of SQL. So in Oracle BI now really understands the cube structure of what you're going to look at for this. So what that results in when you're looking at, for instance, a dashboard or a report, you can very easily specify, this is what my dimensions are going down, and then various hierarchies are represented in here, and you can have additional calculated measures that can be actually quite complex, and even include things like forecasts and calculations that are pulled from multiple cubes. We often do that in the implementations that we're involved in for our clients, where we'll pull data from multiple cubes that have varying dimensionality and be able to do more complex calculations than you think you could naturally do. There's also documentation on all of this, and so when you want to do this, if you just go into the admin tool, click on Help, there's the information. It's also the documentation, especially is in the repository builder's guide in terms of working with multidimensional data sources. When you look at that, it goes through the whole process of exactly how to work with this. Now, some of the other things that are new in here is some new data sources. There's support for Oracle OLAP that I just talked about, as well. SAP BW, Microsoft Analysis Services now is in there, Oracle times 10, and Retech BTAS. And OBIE natively understands these types of hierarchies and dimensions for these multidimensional data sources. And that's what I see as one of the big takeaways from this release, is the ability to not only have the front-end visualization of OLAP, but also the back-end, being able to get at multidimensional sources that work so well for OLAP-style navigation. Also, there's support for Oracle Essbase 11.121 with some enhanced integration with that. Alan, is there more to speak on this than what's on the slide? Any color to add to this?
Yeah, I'll just add a couple commentaries on those first two bullets. One is we have a lot of customers coming over through Hyperion that have implemented EPM, and one of the key requirements is to provide security integration between BI and EPM. There was some manual techniques to do this in 11.113, but we've automated that with 11.115. In addition, we continue to invest in integration between Essbase and BI, particularly since Essbase is a part of what we call the BI Foundation. One of the capabilities that came across with Essbase 11.121 and BI 11.115 is the ability for Essbase Studio, which is the cube construction GUI for the Essbase environment, to read the BI server business model layer. So essentially being able to leverage any semantics hierarchy calculations defined in the business model layer allows customers to build Essbase cubes that leverage this single version of the truth. So those are the primary features that were introduced in 11.115 and Essbase 11.121.
Okay. Thanks. One of the other things that we've seen in implementing 11G of OBIEE is that one of the major features of changes in 11.113 was the sitting on top of WebLogic. One of the things that that introduced of memory that is taken by WebLogic just to be able to run the plumbing, if you will, to have the back end that OBIEE requires. And when we deploy that, we notice on the machines that WebLogic itself is taking up some of that space. That's partly because WebLogic can do a lot more than what it's normally doing in an OBIE implementation. So now what they've done is introduced a simpler install for WebLogic and combined multiple WebLogic instances together. So in a very complex implementation, you may need all of what WebLogic is doing, but if it's there just to service OBIEE, now that has a slimmed down profile that saves memory. What that means in the real world is that the installation can fit effectively on a 32-bit machine. And this became an issue in some of our implementations when you want to have a development box that just has an extra instance of OBIE 11G, and you almost can't even fit that on a 32-bit machine because you're limited to the 4 gig of memory, the address space. Now, you still can have the full WebLogic suite if you need it, but you can go through and just say, hey, I want a simple install of WebLogic, and it lays down just the minimum of what you need. As well now, there is a 64-bit administration tool. By the way, that's the VI admin tool. It does still require Windows for that admin tool, but there's a standalone VI admin tool install that's been available for several months, actually, and that can run on 32-bit or 64-bit. The reason this becomes an issue is, again, you're trying to just do, you put this on a Linux box for scalability, let's say, and then in order to just edit the metadata, previously you had to install another copy of OBIEE on a Windows box just so you could go and edit the metadata. Now you can have this on 64-bit, and if you want to just have the 64-bit box, if that happens to be Windows, you can run the admin tool on that same box and be able to run that instead of having to install in a 32-bit environment just to be able to run the admin tool. So that separate VI admin tool is available, downloadable, and can be installed on, let's say, your Windows laptop to be able to administrate the VI metadata. There are also enhancements to the VI admin tool. I took a screenshot of what it looked like when you're looking at the business model diagram in 11.1.1.3, and there are some limitations when you're looking at that. It's kind of one of those areas you just went in there just to look at the joins. Now with 11.1.1.5, that business model diagram, and for that matter the physical diagram as well, are an area that are actually, quite frankly, more useful than they were before. Now you can see visually how the joins are taking place, and you can see the individual fields and scroll up and down on that. It has this list that you see on the right side. If you see elevator bars on those, yes, you can move those around. It's sizable, the column list. You can see what the columns are. Each of those are collapsible, or you can collapse them all and get more the traditional view of how you're looking at the data. It has an auto layout button. I'm not sure. I did not find a print there, and so I think there may be an issue still in trying to print these diagrams. Bob, not to put you on the spot, but do you happen to know if there's a way to print these things besides just doing the obvious alt print screen to try and get these diagrams?
That's a really good question. I believe you can, but I have not really tested that out. So I'm going to have to.
We'll find out on that. Maybe we'll.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I meant to catch you with that before the presentation started. The joins now have arrows on them, so you can see how the joins. One of the byproducts of that I've noticed is you draw your joins backwards from the way you did in the previous release versus 11.1.1.3. And so you end up joining them back, and I'll show that in just a moment here. Let me go ahead and just flip over to that. And by the way, while I'm still on the slide, there's a web API for managing the metadata now as well, so that if you found that you wanted to be able to proceduralize something that changes your metadata, there's now an API that you can write to instead of having to do everything through the VI admin tool. So that's a welcome addition. for those that want to proceduralize things more. Let me show what that looks like. If I come in here and look at, for instance, just the flat files sample, and if I come in here and look at the business model diagram on this, let me zoom out on this. Whoops. Try that again. So let me look at the sample app and look at the business diagram for that. This shows a lot more. Now, in this case, you can see there's a lot of tables in here, and this is as far as I can still move things around, but instead of having this just be collapsed, which I can do if I collapse this, I can expand all of these table names and look at them. And if I zoom into this a little more, you can see if I look at this table and say, what's in that table? Those are the columns, and I can scroll through them and look at them and change the column width. Let me sort them by their length or whether they have nulls or not, what columns they are, and look through these and expand each of these to see more of the table. It's a much nicer interface. As well, if I zoom back out, and then I want, I've messed this up. You know, it's funny, I see demos of this all the time, and what the first things people do is move all these tables around so they can make it look more like a star. Now there's a very nice auto layout button that attempts to do that the way you'd want it, putting the fact tables more in the middle and the dimension tables off to the side, and if it's a snowflake, snowflaking out the side. And so it's a much more capable type of interface that you can work with now. When you draw your joins between these, I'll just make this up. Let's say I'm drawing a new join between this table and this table. I'd start with the fact table and then click on the dimension table, and then it brings up the familiar dialog to say what the logical join is. But notice I drew the join in the other direction because that's what the arrow is trying to represent here. So be aware of that as you're working with the tool. Things have changed a little in that area. All right, and so that's some of the major changes in the BI admin tool in here to be able to look at how these business diagrams happen. Same is true over here on the physical side if you want to look at those types of diagrams. Now, some of the other things in here, there's a web service for the metadata. That's what I was talking about before, is the ability to interact with the BI server metadata with some standards. The data model diagrams have been revamped. It's more ERD-style presentation of what things look like. There's a consistency checker that's been enhanced, and I have not had a chance to play with this more in terms of what's changed in there. Anybody on the phone want to go into more on that, or should I just move on?
This is Bob. Let me say just a couple words about that.
Yeah, please.
One thing that you will find if you are a BI applications customer is that the enhanced checker with all these extra rules that we've added catches a lot of things that weren't caught before in the BI applications. And so we're doing a bunch of work on our end to clean that up. But also you'll find that you could have the same thing happen with some of your own applications as well. And so what we've done is we've delivered a patch, or we are going to be delivering a patch for 11.115 that gives you the ability to turn off warnings that you don't want to, warnings that are kind of like false alarms to you. There's a way that you can turn those off. A couple other changes in that area. So if you run the consistency checker and you get a lot of problems, check the documentation, because we have written up in the upgrade guide, we've written up a lot of the new, well, all of the new errors that'll come up and a lot of the new warnings and suggestions for what you need to do to fix those up to be able to get past the checker. And then there's that patch as well that you should watch for. So just, don't panic if all of a sudden you get a million errors. Just go to the upgrade guide and you'll be able to deal with it.
Now, Bob, just to clarify, thanks for jumping in on that, is that ability to ignore some of the errors, and I know I have some RPDs that generate warnings that I say, yeah, I know about that. Don't tell me about that every time. Is that feature in 11.115, or is that an upcoming patch to 11.115 to be able to turn off?
Actually, it doesn't let you turn off the errors. It lets you turn off the warnings. So the errors you generally still need to fix. The errors mean that the metadata won't even load into the BI server.
Yep.
You know, that is that badly broken. Versus the warnings are things that, hey, this may get you into trouble later, may not merge as well as you would like, things like that. So the errors you can't turn off. The warnings you will be able to turn off, and that requires the patch that either just came out or is just about to come out.
Super. Well, thanks. Anything else to add? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's it.
Okay, super. So there's some welcome additions to the admin tool. There's also a updated BI sample 11115. Now, I've run into some clients that have implemented OBIEE. They're working through it. They didn't go through the extra step of installing the sample application. And in many cases, you know, I encourage them very strongly to go ahead and implement the BI sample application. The reason being is it shows you many examples of dashboards and reports that you can build, and quite often, if you don't know the things that you can do, then you don't know to try that type of thing. And so the 11115 BI sample expands on what was really very fine with that with BI sample 11113. You still have to install it yourself, as far as I understand, and it's well worth the time to do that. And that updated 11115 sample will be available soon. Indeed, I spoke to the person that's working on that, very willing to work with us in the community on trying to, you know, beef that up, and let me know if you want to find out more about that. It's actually pretty exciting, and that's the stuff that I'm running with right now. It looks very nice. Some of the things in that sample application, the way it's been beefed up, is some additional S-base examples using actions and write-back type capabilities, and be able to show how you're doing getting data from multiple locations with federation and advanced calculations. There's also a lot of work that's been gone into in showing using Oracle data mining with integration on this, and showing how data mining can work with OBIEE. And I'll go ahead and show that. There's also some additional formatting examples that are in there as well that show how you can use OBIEE. Indeed, you can see behind there a pivot table that has spark lines in the middle of it and a voting bar in the middle. And that's shown in the example how to do that in the new BI sample. And let me go ahead and flip over to that and show you what some of this stuff looks like in the BI sample. So if I'm looking at, this is the general index that you get when you run BI sample 11115. There are tons, each one of these are dashboards that have been built and show some of the things in here, source-specific features like Oracle OLAP. Indeed, if I just drop down dashboard, it'll show kind of the hierarchy of the various types of dashboards that are in here. There's also a configuration page in here, by the way, that shows, hey, here's some diagrams of what the sample data looks like, what the various product hierarchies are. This is the way the employee hierarchy is set up. And this is kind of documentation, if you will, built in directly into the BI sample application that allow you to understand. Normally, if you're running a BI application that you're looking at for your own company, you know what the data is. In this case, they're telling you this is what the data is for this company for looking at that. Even logical hierarchies that are in here, and how is this all configured. If I go in and look at some of the dashboards, for those that haven't seen the BI sample stuff, this comes up, and you can expand and contract. I told you before I would show you a little bit of why we think that the OLAP capabilities in OBIEE, even in 11113, are so important. It's this ability to drill down on a single node and see in a hierarchical fashion, this is called a hierarchical column, values at multiple levels at once without having to clutter up your screen with lots of additional columns. And there are other things in the sample that show very nicely how this software works. The purpose of this call is not to go through everything that OBIEE does, but I wanted to show you just a little bit of that. If we come in and look at one of the other dashboards, if you look at the Oracle OLAP one, it takes you through seeing seen what it looks like from an OLAP source. You can look at your OLAP data for BizTech, FunPod, and HomeView, and so forth, and then same data from the relational, and you can look at how that compares when you kind of take this apart. So I don't want to go too much into this stuff, but if you're looking at forecasting with the data now with the OLAP engine in here, you can take advantage of things like forecasting built into the Oracle Enterprise Database with the OLAP option that allows you to forecast your data and build that into a dashboard and take advantage of that data within your organization. It's all built in, basically, in looking at trying to generate statistical forecasts of your data. There's a lot more here that I don't have time to go through. One last thing that I'll go ahead and show, because it's of interest to us especially, is showcasing some of the capabilities that you can do with data mining with OBIEE, and look at your customers by lifetime value bins, binning this together and seeing what are our number of customers with various types of churn probabilities and what the lifetime value of those are. So there's a lot in here to kind of get your head around and take a look at with these types of analyses. Lastly, I'm going to show something in here where you can see the maps that are in here. If we come in and look at a master detail type of map, this has been in there before, but there have been some areas where the drilling and looking at the maps makes it so that you have to scroll things around to get at the data. Now that's been resolved. If I look at pie graphs across the country, and then I come in and look at drilling into the data, and come in and drill in on Kansas, and I can scroll through these. If I click on Kansas, it'll sync. This is a master detail type report that moves all these. The refinement in being able to look at the interface in here in this release makes it a lot nicer to be able to work with the software. I think I want to make sure that we have enough time for questions, so I'm going to move on in talking about some of the other features in here. Some of the end user enhancements in here. What I found is the best way to look at this is to actually search the documentation for 11.115. Indeed, in preparing for this presentation, I need to know what are the new things out there, and I wanted to know more than just what made the Oracle press release. So I literally went and opened up the documentation. You can search in the book for the documentation, and in each area they tell you for the end user guide, this is new in what's new in 11.115. For the administration guide, this is what's new in 11.115. For the security guide, this is what's new in 11.115. So my secret for doing this was to go in and search the books for 11.1.1.5, and they start each one of the books with this is what's new in this area, and that's how I put together some of these topics here. There's lots of bug fixes. There's one thing I didn't have a chance to show was control over the prompt width. That's one of the end user areas that I guess just got slipped in with the ability on a page display to set the width of all the prompts to a specific number of pixels. Before you didn't have control over that, and prompt wrapping. You can also use Google Maps, by the way, as a background map when you're doing spatial analysis, if it's important to be able to show the Google Maps on there. There's also a BI Composer for JAWS and accessibility features, if that's important to you. It'll be interesting to see how that progresses in future releases. There are also some enhancements in scorecard and strategy management that I know are there. I didn't have a chance to look into. Let me ask those on the phone, anything that I should add in that that I should go over in here and give you a chance to talk about that.
Yeah, as I recall, for scorecard and strategy management, there were some enhancements to just improve the usability of some of the wizards, as well as some more flexibility in defining thresholds. So I believe in 11.113, KPI, red was a 0, yellow was 50, green was 100, and you generate a value based on that. But there's some more flexibility in defining how those values are associated.
Yeah, my guess. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
So my guess is some of this is as the BI apps community starts to look to take advantage of this with their release, they say, whoa, we need this feature. And so some of that was put in. And what I think you'll see, I've seen this in other areas in the Oracle products, as the applications people need to take advantage of stuff, they're going to help drive the need for some of the stuff that we in the consulting community are also finding, hey, we need this feature. And so that's going to help drive a lot of the base features of the product. And I think it's huge now that the BI apps team is on the 11G release. There are also some enhancements in BI Publisher that are important in here as well that I didn't have a chance to go through in the 11.115 release. When it comes to BI map views, there's a UI now for defining Google Maps as a tile in the map viewer, and you can make that. You still end up using the NavTech data to do thematic type maps, but now the background map could include a Google map of things if that's what you need to look at. And you need a Google Maps API key to be able to do that. So you still use the NavTech data, though, to display shapes, if you will, for country boundaries and such. So some of what that looks like is the BI map views. You'd have the state formats and bar graphs are generated by OBIEE, but the background map can be serviced from Google Maps instead. In the area of strategy and scorecard management, sorry, I should have had this up when you were speaking before, but this is where some of the areas are in scorecard and strategy management. Be able to do a search in the dimension bars, the new KPI builder, and some of these types of things as it goes forward. In terms of installation and upgrade, we talked about before about how now it has a smaller footprint, a simpler install, and there's also integration with Oracle support for updates on that, and the ability to do in-place upgrades from 11.113 to 11.115, or you can install it yourself. Indeed, in our client projects, we're kind of needing to figure out, and in many cases, looking at whether we want to go ahead and do the in-place upgrade, or do we want to instead install fresh and bring things over, simply because we don't want all of the WebLogic machinery there. And we're very excited about the new simple install for WebLogic to free up some memory and make that available for OBIEE and other processes on the box, and expecting some performance improvements from that area. For those that are looking to upgrade from BI 10, there are a bunch of fixes that now are in there, and in general, look at what you're doing. You know, become educated on that, and complete really all of your 10G deployment cycles and roll those out to production. And make sure that what you're needing to do in 10G then can be done in 11G, and you know, deploy your new applications in the 11G environment, but make sure before you roll everything over from 10G that it does what you need to do before you jump on everybody moving up to the 11G platform. With that, I wanted to leave a little bit of time for some questions. I want to thank Marty, Bob, and Alan for joining me. I expect that there's probably a lot of questions on here, so I want to leave some time for that. So with that, Kasha, how do they end up entering questions in here?
Please go ahead and submit your questions. We've been accepting questions throughout the event, but you can go ahead and place your questions in the questions box that's located on your webinar toolbar, and we'll be accepting those. So I'll give you a few seconds to enter them in, and I'll send them over to all the speakers.
Let me make sure I can see the questions as they come in. Kasha, I assume you'll send those over to us so that we can address those. I guess in that chat window, probably. One of the questions that came up is, what about Android or BlackBerry support? Let me give Oracle a first crack at that. I know what I've heard, but anything that you all want to add for that in terms of supporting others than just the iPhone platform?
Yeah, my only comment is obviously we have strict policies at Oracle on discussing timelines, but they are on the roadmap.
What I've heard, I can maybe Oracle people have to be careful what they promise. I understand that. What I've heard is there's been a huge demand for the iOS platform, and so that's what I've heard just anecdotally. Is one of the reasons you see so much emphasis on that. Is that it's where they see a lot of the marketplace driving them is that that platform. But then obviously future stuff is hard to promise in a public setting like this. All right. So another question was, our connection methods same for all OLAPs from various technologies? What approach our connection to SSAS? I would say from what I've seen in the connections to the OLAP sources, there are dialog boxes that change if you are making a connection to Oracle OLAP using the tool doing the import metadata. There are questions that are asked in terms of how you make that connection that are different from other sources. So I would say the connection methods are different for OLAP from the different sources because the technology is different. I know in the case of going to Oracle OLAP, we used a JDBC string of just the host, port, and SID with a colon in between each of those. I'm sure those are different for other sources as well. I don't know the SSAS connection method.
Yeah, so for analysis services, it's XMLA. For Space, it's native API. For BW, it's you have the option of XMLA or native connectivity through BAPI.
Okay. Another question is there support for multiple hierarchies? Has the support been extended to include value-based hierarchies? I know in the case of Oracle OLAP it is. I don't know if that's in general for all the different sources.
It is in general. It's just basically a matter of having multiple roots. And so you can do that even against relational. And Alan, I don't know if you want to say something about how that relates to the S-base.
Yeah, so for multidimensional sources, it's for relational sources, there's a modeling technique, and Bob's an expert at that. For modeling value-based hierarchies, for multidimensional sources, there's more native capabilities for modeling value-based.
Question on how easy is the SAP BW native connectivity? Is it the same as Oracle OLAP? And any additional work to retain the hierarchical structures?
So I would refer to the documentation for setting up the native connectivity through BAPI, and the hierarchical structures are automatically imported as with OLAP.
One of the things I'll go ahead and throw in, and you may run into some of this type of stuff with SAP. Indeed, my colleague Chris Clatterbuss has something on his blog about this. When you bring over the stuff from Oracle OLAP, and I didn't really talk about this when I was demoing this, but one of the things you'll find is it brings over all the attributes. And you may have additional attributes such as a date, a timestamp, or a date for each time period, and the number of days in each time period may be important from a modeling perspective and calculation perspective, but you really don't want to expose that to the end user. As a result, what you may find is, yeah, everything comes over, but you may want to hide some of the additional structures that you need for your own purposes from the end user. I would expect that you'll run into those types of issues with any of the sources where you say, yeah, that brought everything over, but I don't want to expose all of this. Another example that I know we ran into in Oracle OLAP is that when you are bringing over your levels, you may introduce a total of all of your products as a level in your product dimension. Well, then OBIE by default will add its own total, and you'll have two totals. And you really don't need that, so you can shut one off. Those types of modifications are some of the things you need to do. The big news here is you don't have to do plumbing type of connections. The plumbing comes across, and that's what makes it so much easier for this. you may want to do some things for aesthetic purposes. Another question is, any comments, suggestions with respect to the skill sets required for establishing the business model and mapping layer in the Common Enterprise Information Model and the critical nature of the step? I would add that, sure, what I notice is that now that Oracle BI is so widely talked about and used, that there are a lot of people looking at implementing these features. And what I notice is that there are a lot of people looking at this, but they don't really know dimensional modeling type of skills and the whole concept of what a star schema is and how to figure out if something is a dimension or an attribute. Should these two different tables be combined into one dimension? Are they indeed two levels or not? All that type of stuff makes it so that you really want to consider those skill sets. If you're going to be building that type of application, you need people that have some experience in dimensional modeling, because it's not all cut and dry when you get into real situations. So I think having those skills is very helpful.
Yeah, and I think I would agree there too. One thing I would say, one thing I'd also say is that it's really important to take a modeling mindset. Besides what you just said, Dan, about dimensional modeling. By the way, we assume that you understand everything in Kimball's Data Warehouse Toolkit. When we're laying out the UI and so on, that's the assumed level of knowledge there about dimensional modeling. But then the other thing that we see besides that is a lot of people come at it with a SQL mindset, because they're used to a tool like Bria, where it's a visual SQL metaphor. They're used to writing SQL. If you go in with that mindset, you're going to be frustrated, because you really do need to use a modeling mindset. Think about your dimensional model and how it maps to the data sources, and how you're going to use the BI server to generate millions and millions of queries for you, as opposed to you handcrafting SQL statements the way that you would do in some other kinds of products.
Yep, good point. Another question was, has support for multiple RPDs been implemented?
Not yet. So, I mean, one plug I do want to put in, I mean, we're not allowed to talk much about our roadmap, but once we finished that giant 11G release, we shifted a lot of resources around within development, and one of the areas that we're investing in really heavily right now is metadata lifecycle management. And a lot of you have been giving us feedback on that. We've been listening to the feedback. We've been incorporating that in our requirements. Multiple RPDs is not something I can promise right now because of how we talk about roadmap, but we've been listening. We are doing lots of work in this area and investing really heavily, is what I can say.
All right, so let me ask you, let me ask you this. Have you heard from multiple people that they would like support for being able to handle multiple RPDs? Heard the people want that?
Of the people I've talked to on this topic, I could count on one hand the number of people who have not asked for that feature.
That's what I figured. All right, fair enough. One thing to point out, if those that haven't looked at 11G real closely, there is support there for multiple subject areas. So we were glad to have that ability within an analysis. You can add multiple subject areas. So that's starting to get there.
Right, and there are other things that are visible too. And one of the things that you can see is, we've got this monolithic RPD today, but you can see we've already started breaking that up. You saw that in 11.113 with the XML API, which lets us break down the RPD into XML objects and also manipulate it. And then 11.115, we've added a web service on top of that. So the transition has begun. And if you look closely, you will see that we're moving in a direction, but yeah, I can't tell you the whole roadmap, unfortunately.
Okay, sure. And so another was, can you selectively collapse tables in the business diagram? Well, I want to say yes. This one I should be able to just show.
Yes.
Right? Oh, what the heck? We've gone through the whole presentation. I had to go and just do this. It's one of these buttons, collapse all and expand all. So those are expand, those are collapsed. And then if I come in here, I know I've done this. Help me out.
It's a right click.
It's a right click. Thank you. That's what it is. All right. So when you double click on that, this is the guy that comes up. I knew I'd done this. So I can collapse this and hide it. Oh,
wait. Where'd the collapse? There.
Where'd the collapse go? I can hide. I can delete. I know I deleted them when I was playing with them. I'll make sure I don't save. But I thought
that's weird.
Marquee, zoom in, zoom out. New table. That's how I do my.
Oh, you know what you do? You, select one. Boy, I've done this a lot of times.
Yeah, it's like I've normally done this. Properties. And you can see the properties of them, all that type of stuff. Oh, well, we'll get back to you on that one. I know I've all right.
Yeah, so you can definitely do it. If you try collapsing all of them, first of all, and then if you double click on one of them,
that's where
it expands. And then now look at the right click. Yeah, there you go.
Okay, should be there.
I'm confused.
Yeah, I know. But you can definitely do them if you that's the hard way to do it. But I'm sure there's other ways as well. Each one of these. All right, so that's what that looks like. So yeah, I can achieve what I'm trying to achieve. I don't know if I showed the auto layout before. That's what that looks like. All right, well, I can keep going on tangents. Let me see what other questions we have. I have an issue with annoying transactional I have an issue with annoying transactional update been resolved in the admin tool. I'm not sure I know what the transactional update in the admin tool is. Do you know that?
I know what that is. So yeah, so that's when you're doing online mode development. In other words, you've got an open RPD in the BI server, and you've connected your admin tool to the BI server. When you make updates against that metadata, it's a much, much riskier thing than when you make them offline. And so there are situations online where if the changes you made are inconsistent, you will get a transaction error. And there are a number of other cases around that. You know, the primary thing there is just if you're doing things that are too complicated or inconsistent, or if you've got multiple people working in online mode simultaneously in particular, you can create that situation. So, you know, if you're in online mode, you need to do saves really, really frequently, and you know, a lot of times you need to go to offline mode in order to be able to save the things that you want to save. Online mode is more of just a quick convenience kind of a thing. It's not the primary mode of development.
I know that not only do we save periodically, but we also use that copy as and make a copy of the RPD file,
right,
and to kind of back things up that way. Because the one thing I'll put in a plug, you know what I really want is I want an undo button. So I'll put in an enhancement request that I'm sure you've heard from others, but I'd love that both in the front end and in the BI admin tool. So. All right, well, that's what I have in terms of questions that I've received. I appreciate everybody's time. I think we've kind of at the end of our hour. I don't want to overstay a welcome. I want to especially thank Kasia and IOUG for hosting us, and also our thanks to Marty. Marty, you didn't talk much. Anything on the OLAP stuff? I'll give you a last chance since you didn't pipe in as much.
Yeah, this is Marty. Personally, so I focus on the OLAP product area for Oracle. And, you know, we're just really excited about this release. So, Dan, I wanted to thank you, for pulling together this this session, and I hope people got a lot out of it. Great job, Dan.
Thanks, and thanks, Alan and Bob, for joining us and fielding some of the questions that come up. And, you know, keep in mind, look for other tech casts. We plan on having these. We've had these for quite some time on a regular basis. Take a look at oraclebiwa.org, and you'll see a schedule of upcoming tech casts as time goes on. Thanks very much, everybody.
Thanks to each of you for participating in this webinar. We appreciate Dan, Bob, Marty, and Alan for speaking today, and everyone online attending the event today. There is a survey after this webinar for you to complete, and we thank you in advance for your feedback. This feature will also be available on the IUG website at www.ioug.org. Thank you again to everyone for attending today's webinar, and have a wonderful day.